I would say that we are friends. I don't know if I would call them close friends, but I would say that we are friends. And I think that because of those things that I just said, Flop was worried that it could come up in terms of his work, his investigation slash. I think that there's just an overall worry that you know my being around these people endangers any of you. Yeah, which I just want to say, and I understand that even me saying this, I don't think that or I'm not going to say you have to believe it, but if it does anything, I would like to reassure everybody that there is no issue or any danger or anything like that. But that's yeah.
Okay, but why would there even be a cause for concern if this is sort of solely within the capacity of you as either an attorney or a therapist?
Right. I don't know.
Ziggy, this isn't exactly like you. Like, normally, if you were confronted with a situation like this, it's like, sort of, for lack of a better term, it's never this. I've never gotten a text from you in a situation like this. Normally, it's you screeching, "I'm just doing my fucking job,"
Right.
but
Well,
now we're all sitting here barely saying a word, and you're saying you're just doing your job essentially as an attorney and a therapist.
that's the thing though. You're you're saying that I've gone out of my way to present this to everybody. I have just been doing the job. But Flop came to me and talked to me about it, and then, Flop went to Richard and talked to him about it, and I want to say that Flop brought up something that Richard may be worried or concerned. So it's like, okay, I have again no issues being an open book about this stuff. So I I reached out to Richard and was like, hey, let's have a talk. And that did not go well. Um, so I figured, okay, I've talked to both Flop and Richard. I saw Etta at the end of that day after I talked to Richard. The last person that I had to talk to was you, so I reached out. This isn't me just going out of my way to cover my ass or some shit. I this is me being I was reached out to first.
Okay. But like Matt said, why would you being a lawyer or a therapist for these people be of concern to the rest of us, like from a danger standpoint?
That is a question that I don't have an answer to. That is the worry that you had, and I tried to reassure on, and I don't know that it actually happened. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
I didn't bring that out specifically. You brought that
You
up.
did. No, you did. You did. You implied some sort of association or implication with these people, and it. Okay.
Deep breath.
I'm gonna step in.
Hold on, because I want to clear something up.
Let him finish.
Ziggy, for the most part, I'm gonna lie and say this is 100%. I'm not coming at you. Nobody's coming at you from a place of malice. Both me and Matt are concerned about this situation as a whole because people could be at risk. That goes for both Flop and you. So as much as this might feel as people coming at you, which it is, doesn't mean we're attacking you or anything. And I understand this might be a very stressful situation, and it might be upsetting as well, but this needs to happen.
Richard. Okay, I'm gonna say this as plainly as I can. Not only did you, during our conversation, openly say that you do not trust me, you said that if I were to break Flop's heart or hurt him in any way, that you would in turn break my face. Now, I understand that that is coming from a place of you want to protect your son, and I get that. And if I was, somebody new to the family, or even new to a relationship with Flop, that wouldn't have bothered me. But we've been together for years, and give me a second. We've been together for years, and I see both you and Matt as my dads, and to hear that, it I did not feel like a part of the family in that moment.
Ziggy, I don't know much about what's going on. But what I do know is that I'm a firm believer in, trust but verify. I say that all the time. But I'm also a firm believer in sort of setting forth not just expectations but consequence. Want people to know nobody should ever be surprised about what happens to them, or what the consequence is should something happen. But I will say this: I personally will never get physical with you, and I trust you. I have very little reason not to. But if I find out that you're lying to us in front of me, Flop, Richard, and Etta, there is no coming back from that. None. Zero. There's no apology in this world. There's nothing. So if there is something to be said, if there's something going on, you can tell us now. Or again, for me personally, that there's no coming back.
Okay.
And to be clear, if nothing's going on, that's fine. Again, I've already said what I said. I trust you. All right? And I don't know if your back is up against a wall right now. But if there was anyone you could confide in, it would be us.
It's true. What happens at home stays at home. But if we can't trust in each other, then who can we trust in?
Yeah. Okay. And I fully understand that. If there's anything to be said about it, it's those that group of people. I don't know about all of them. See me as somebody that they trust with their rather sensitive information, their personal lives, sometimes even shit that goes on in between them.
That sounds like
that,
normal lawyer therapist stuff.
No, it's not.
No, not necessarily. People talking about their personal problems with therapists, that's normal. But this is deeper in the way of interpersonal relationships. They see me as a way to, help and resolve that in some ways. In terms of what all they get up to, I am not involved in anything criminal. Am I privy to some things that have, that they've done? Sure, but there's a lot that I don't know. There are things that I am not told, um, and that is it. How they view me is, you know, up to them. There's no label that has been put on any of it. Um, that is where I'm at. Uh, if it's no, if it's okay, I'd like just a little bit to think while you guys talk. I want to say more, but yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna take a moment if that's all right.
That's fine.
So, does anybody else want to share their thoughts?
I mean, I've made mine clear. And I will always do this for any relationship. When I say relationship, it doesn't have to be super personal.
Right.
But trust me when I say I am the type of person that can drop somebody from my life and pretend they never existed. It's not difficult for me to do so. And that may sound terrible. I get it. For some, it's incredibly difficult. It's never been difficult for me. And I love all of you. I do. But at the same time, that can go away if I no longer have a reason to love you. I'm not somebody who will endlessly hold on, hoping things are going to change. I know people are creatures of habit. I know people rarely ever change. And everyone here knows that. Everyone here deals with the amount of stuff that we deal with on a daily basis every single day. Run into the same people, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Go to prison, rinse, repeat, do it again. The only time they ever change is when they need or want something. And they change temporarily. But I can count over the past 12 years, maybe 2 people who I've genuinely seen change. And so, for me, it comes down to, I've seen this so many times. And again, I'm not at all saying Ziggy's doing something wrong. What I am saying is I've seen people struggle with trying to change, and some people lying about being willing to change, and then falling back into their old habits. And I don't want to see that here. But at the same time, if I do, I'm not going to sit and pretend that I don't know you. I will have a conversation with you, and I will make it clear we're done. You know, I don't want anything to do with you. And like I said, I know that's difficult for some, but for me, it's not. Because I have always told people, I know my own mental capacity. I know where that threshold is. And I know that if I were to entertain or try to hope that something was going to get better, and it didn't, it would push me past that threshold. And it's probably one of the few things that keeps me grounded. But I've done this my whole life. And I've never passed that threshold because I am willing to step away. I don't want that to happen here, Ziggy. I hope you realize that.
I do.
I guess I'll be transparent about the conversation that we had yesterday. I went into that. I had to go into that as an interrogation. And Flop, I'll be honest, when we had that conversation in the briefing room, as much as it kind of let you say that you thought everything was kind of smoothed over and okay, I didn't want you to have to be the one to do what I did with Ziggy at the park yesterday. Because I'll be honest, I had to go into that and as an interrogation because I had to put emotion aside. Because as much as I have presented otherwise, I think you two are pretty good together. So that being said, I went in there because we were presented with something that may be a possibility of Ziggy being associated with a criminal gang. So that's what we're dealing with here. I went into that to see, well, I didn't go into that believing it. I went into that with let's give it in cop terms. I went in with reasonable suspicion. Okay? Flop, you were concerned. That concerned me. I mean, Maisie had said that when, I don't remember exactly whose name was brought up, and Ziggy's name was brought up, she told me that you felt sick. That made me feel sick, because I don't want you feeling like that about your partner. So, I went into that conversation to try and figure out whether or not Ziggy was telling the truth after he'd spoken to you and smooth things out. And I'll be honest, Ziggy, everything you said to me only made me believe that you weren't telling the truth. From not telling me where Harry Benson lives to trying to convince me that cops who turn to crime because the system fails them, that I should have sympathy for that. That you are planning ahead and you've warned both myself and Flop about you mistakenly committing crime and being prepared for that. When I ask you about it, you say that the crime that you're talking about is self-defense. And clearly that's not why you brought that up to Flop nor me. You brought that up because we were talking about a criminal gang that you were friends with, that you think sometime down the line you may commit crime with those people.
That is an assumption, because the in the context where those were brought up, it was entirely separate. There was the the attempt to link me to these people in that way, sure, uh, but after having talked about that for a little bit, I wanted to clarify at some point that if at some point in the future, and sure, it was a poor mistake or a poor analogy referencing like self defense as a mistake or whatever. But it, the connection between the two was not something that I was even had remotely in my mind. Sure, I still don't have a good example as to what I meant, so it's hard to even. Okay, I understand your perspective. Sorry.
And so, yeah, at the end of that conversation, I do believe that you aren't telling us the truth. I think you're much more involved with these people than just a lawyer or a therapist. I don't know the extent of that, but from the start of this conversation before you stopped talking earlier, it sounds like I don't know exactly what it sounds like, but it sounds more than therapy.
What did you just do?
And so I gave you an ultimatum. I did. That wasn't just for Flop, because
Did you give me an ultimatum?
no, I'm saying I gave Ziggy an ultimatum that either if he wants to go down that road and he wants to perhaps commit crime with these people in the future, then now would be the time to separate himself from the people that would get hurt, because people do get hurt in those situations. Family members get hurt, especially ones that are police officers. So yes, I gave an ultimatum that if he wanted to go down that line, as much as I wouldn't approve of it, keep Flop, you out of it, and do it. Otherwise, just stay on the path, and keep.
You told me that if that was the case, I should leave.
Yes. If you're going to do crime, you should leave. Because you're only going to put Flop in danger. God knows who else. What other members of the family are going to get put in danger too. And as much as your intentions may be good, and you will I never ever believe that you will intentionally put Flop or any other member of this family in danger. If you get too involved, that is out of your control. And then that same night, well, you're pretty close to Solomon, right, Ziggy?
Yeah.
You and him are like lawyer buddies.
Yeah, he's running for mayor. Yeah.
You gonna help him out run for mayor?
Campaign, yeah.
Is Solomon a part of ADMC?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Well, he has access to Barry Benson's house.
Okay.
Seems pretty comfortable with it too.
How do you know that?
Because I watched him go inside.
Oh, Richard.
I'm just gonna come out and say, what the fuck is wrong with you?
What? Oh, okay.
Why is that the question?
Not about that in particular. You know who else has a stressful job and is at risk every day? People that wear a badge too. You're not trying to get me fired.
That's apples and oranges, son. Come on. That's apples and oranges. That's not a good comparison.
We know where we stand. We know where the line is. We don't willingly put an effort to walk over it.
Okay, but I just want to address, Richard, did you just happen to stumble upon that, or?
I was at the courthouse. I drove past Solomon. I knew I had looked at where Barry Benson lived because I was concerned about this whole thing. And I think I'd looked it up before me and Ziggy had even had this conversation. and I saw him, and I drove up to the second floor because he was running into the alleyway, and he ran straight into the back door of Barry Benson's house. And so obviously, then I had to go speak to Maisie because now she might be in danger too, because
Why
she
would
had
be
no
in
idea.
danger?
Because they're
She's
dating.
with Solomon.
Oh, okay.
Hold on,
Yeah.
wait. Solomon's an attorney.
Yes.
So they're... I mean,
I
not that there's...
I helped him get.
Not that there's
yeah.
anything wrong with having two attorneys, especially if there's a large group, but...
I mean, it's the ADMC. They're in jail quite often, so yeah. Yeah, they're also incredibly dangerous and don't like people snooping. Please be careful, Richard. Please.
So, Flo, what is wrong with me?
We had our conversation, and you immediately turned around and essentially, respectfully, went behind my back. You didn't
Yeah,
tell
you're
me
right,
you
I
were going to
did.
have a conversation. Yeah. How the fuck am I
I
supposed
mean,
to feel?
You were aware that me and Jiggy were going to talk, but were
This
you
isn't a
ever
talk.
really... Hold on. Were you ever really going to sit down and ask your husband whether he was part of a gang?
Ziggy, you are here right now in front of everybody. Did I not ask you this question?
He did.
In the same way I did?
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Okay.
Before...
Can I hold my hands up?
No, before this continues, I want to say my part. I think, not I think, they view me as they view me as somebody that they would call a chaplain that holds rather sensitive information about stuff that goes on. Not all of it. I am not involved, nor do I get told much about whatever crime occurs, and frankly, I stay well and far from it. So, that they've said that is their viewpoint of me. I looked up what the role is, and how even it would be defined in terms of a group like that, and I do certainly fit that role in terms of how they define it. So that is where I stand with these people.
Ziggy.
Yeah.
You've been a cop long enough to know how these things play out. In situations like this, these people never, long term, make any sort of equitable decisions. Okay? People end up being nothing more than a replaceable cog in a wheel. And when those cogs get worn and start to slip or slow the wheel down, they'll try something quick and dirty to try to get everything back in motion the way it was before. Even if that means running that cog that you would be faster and harder despite nothing else changing. Until you slip. And then you get replaced by another replaceable cog. Because again, these people do not care long term about anybody but themselves. But if something were to happen to you, I need you to look around here and acknowledge that it's not even just us. Everybody else who loves you. We are going to be affected by that because of the decision you made to be a willing cog in that wheel. And
Because when they're done with you, they'll put a bullet in you.
And the reality is, that won't even be their first course of action. Their first course of action would end up being threatening the people you care about to get you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't. To get you to go faster in that wheel. Again, until you slip. And then they hurt somebody you care about. And tell you somebody else is next if you can't get back into that wheel and do it better and faster than last time without slipping. I'll say this, and this is probably the last thing I'm going to say. I don't care at all any of what you've done. Potentially, hypothetically, it doesn't matter. Unless you've been involved in a homicide, which I highly doubt. I love you, Ziggy. And I hope to keep on loving you. And please, please, do not give me a reason to stop.
She... Chaplin's,
Sorry, go ahead.
I think most of us have had experience with motorcycle gangs, and Chaplin's like it's a rank. It's a position in the club. And they don't hand those out to no members. So have you been blotted in?
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's what happened, or I would call it it nothing like that has happened.
Richard, wait.
I don't know, what does a blooding in consist of?
Oftentimes
Let's put it this way.
it requires you to do something you otherwise wouldn't. Something you'd typically never consider doing to sort of prove you're worthy and can be trusted.
Oh, no. That hasn't happened. They did ask me to kill a panther, but those are an invasive species, so I did do that.
Well, let's put it this way. If you leave, are they going to put a bullet in your head?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I think that if I was to leave and, you know, take all of their information and, you know, have done so in malice or something like that, I think I'm sure. I think that would happen. But if, I don't know, if I was just to be like, hey guys, you know, I'm like, this isn't, you know, this is affecting, you know, me in a pretty negative way. I don't think that would be an issue.
I'm gonna check it on Richard.
Okay.
Hmm. For what it's worth, I don't think officially he's been blooded in. Not that that matters in the grand scheme of things, but
Yeah, but he's in.
he didn't get to finish before you walked away, but he did say he truly believes that the only time something would ever happen is if he did something with malice and tried to utilize whatever information he has against them, whether that be turning it over to the police, whatever. Right? At
That's
least that was
naive.
my. I agree. I agree. Okay. But also, I think there's something to be said about the fact that he admitted to it, knowing full well he could have just denied, and played it off as if nothing ever happened until he slipped up again.
There's no way out for him now. That's it. It's in a discussion of, oh, get out before it's too late. That's gone. That's finished.
Okay. I agree. The realist in me agrees, but sometimes people make mistakes and didn't realize what they were getting into until it was too late. And I don't mean this as in like you know, like a relationship in which somebody is cheated. Right? Like you sort of typically go into that with, you always go into it knowing you're already in a relationship. But what if this was originally just a group of friends he enjoyed being around? And it slowly delved into the combination of him being both their friends and always around, and also their attorney, and also the voice of reason, resulting in him being a therapist. And then, rather than it being a willing thing, took the path of least resistance and just sort of nodding his head and continuing on and doing as he does. And then suddenly he's given something he may not have necessarily wanted. Would I hold him responsible for that? Do I think there's some blame to be had? Yeah. But that wouldn't be... That wouldn't be... I'd be disappointed, but I wouldn't think differently of him. Depends on circumstance, really. You know just as well as I do, as does he, as does Flop, as does Etta. You can be presented a situation. Everything remains the same. All of the circumstances, everything. You go in front of a judge, and if you don't articulate it properly, despite nothing changing outside of just the articulation, all of the facts of the case are the same, the outcome can be wildly different. Because you either didn't say something, didn't communicate something very specifically that happened. And in situations like this, what if it was something that started innocently? And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Ziggy wouldn't have known, but Ziggy does also know that taking the path of least resistance typically keeps you on people's good side enough to where you can generally feel safe. You know what I mean? I guess the long story short is that I don't know that this was a willing thing as much as it was he was there, he was convinced, and probably didn't assume much would come of it. You said it. He's naive. I 100% agree with that. But if he wanted to lie to us this entire time and not have said anything, not have mentioned that position,
He has lied. He has. He lied to Flop. Because Flop didn't know about this, I can guarantee you that. He lied to me the other day. He's been lying for however long he's been a part of this group.
okay, well, really think about it.
No, we're gonna.
Are
we're gonna
we-
talk-
No, hold on. I mean, you're right. He has lied, okay? And he has very clearly omitted information. Then if you start sort of breaking this down, how does that compare to us not telling Flop? We didn't tell Flop because we thought it'd be a better decision. We didn't think it was relevant. We didn't think there'd be anything positive contributed to Flop's life, knowing that prior information, right?
I think the difference is we didn't put Flop in that situation. Ziggy did. Ziggy knowingly got involved with people who killed police officers.
But that's
and didn't tell
what I'm
his police
saying.
officer husband.
What if he didn't? What if this started as an innocent, he was their attorney, and then it spiraled in a way that he thought he could control but couldn't? And he figured he would keep it cool, take the path of least resistance, and as a result, now we're here. And obviously it's not good. It's definitely not good. People make mistakes, and everything I said up there is true. I don't have a problem dropping someone and pretend they never existed in my life. Call me heartless, cold-blooded. To me, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I know where I stand. But that's why I laid out the consequences. I made it clear. Outside of being involved in a homicide, I don't care what you did before. Truly, I don't. But don't lie to us moving forward. And then he was seemingly honest. If I had to guess, you know, the police officer in me thinks he may have befriended people, and eventually, doesn't matter how it happened, maybe it was him being naive, doesn't matter. His back ended up being against a wall, took the path of least resistance, thought he could stay under the radar for probably longer than where he's at now, hoping to do something, hoping to not make us worried, and instead we're here. Intent matters, right? If it was his intent to go into this knowing he was putting the lives of others in danger, that's one thing. But if that wasn't his intent, that's a different story. That's why I wanted to make it clear. Clean slate. But don't give me a reason to not believe you. You know?
Yeah. Issue is now he's got no way out. He can't just leave the club, which means he can't just stop doing whatever he's doing, which means he can't leave it. He can't leave Blob. That's not going to happen. Flop's just going to be in danger. That's just a fact. And if we tell Ziggy to leave, then Flop's going to go with him, and then we lose Flop.
I don't know what the best course of action here is. It really is essentially trying to choose the lesser of two evils without knowing what either of the two evils are. But what I do know is, I mean, obviously I'm not happy. I don't like that he lied. I can see, and I hope you understand with me bringing up the Flop situation. Sometimes it's not something you want to do, but you feel obligated to do because you don't want other people to worry about things. I
don't know whether I can trust that it was his reason for lying.
I don't know.
I don't know.
What I do know is that unless I am 1000% confident there was some sort of malicious intent, he fully knew what he was doing at the time, I'm not just going to give up on Ziggy. Yeah, I can be upset with him. I can be upset with family members. That's why I draw that line, and I make it very clear what you need to do to go over it. And once you're across, there's no coming back. Is because I want people to know that there is nothing in this world that will get you back over that line. So choose wisely. And here we are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go up there and let him know. Like, I'm hoping this was him being naive and not realizing what he was actually stepping into. And it may have been related to his jobs. It may have been related to him just making friends with certain people. But I'm not giving up on him. He's family.
Yeah, he is.
And to also be clear, should he cross that line, I'm not giving up on him. But what I mean by that in that case is at that point he sort of gave up. And I'm unwilling to push him back over. Because again, that line is one way. One way and one way only.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should head back up there. Um.
Mhm.
Okay. So, explaining this is a little difficult because I've already laid out all the cards on the table, right? I've made it clear for me personally, and again, I can't speak on behalf of Richard, but for me, I have that line, right?
Mhm.
And once that line is crossed, there's no coming back. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't care what's happened in the past. Again, with the one exception, everything is a clean slate from me,
Mhm.
and your family. Okay, I'm not just going to give up or lose hope or anything to that extent.
Mhm.
And I'm sort of mentally operating under the assumption here that whatever position you're in was not a sort of willful, not willful, that's not the term I'm looking for, but a lot of this is sounding like you were either naive to what was going on or helping in the capacity of one of your jobs, or just maybe you befriended a bunch of people and then sort of unintentionally took the path of least resistance and then ended up being put in this position and then
Mhm.
tried to again take the path of least resistance to ensure that nothing would happen, and then it probably escalated a little too far. This is how I'm playing it out in my mind.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you went into this fully knowing exactly what was going on. I'm hoping not that I like it. I'm hoping it became a matter of you taking the path of least resistance versus willfully involving yourself in a dangerous group of people.
Mhm.
Um, again, just know that I'm not going to give up on you.
Mhm.
But should you cross that line, I've said it a million times now. I have no problems dropping people. But if you
Mhm.
cross that line is very much so one way. And it essentially implies that you gave up and I'm unwilling because I am incapable of letting someone back over.
Yeah.
Understand?
Yes.
And I know I've already said this. I know I'm sort of going in circles here. It's just I can't stress enough the importance that I'm hopeful this was a circumstance of you being naive
Mhm.
and not intentionally stupid, for lack of a
Mhm.
better term. That's where I
Uh,
stand. If you need help with something, if you need help to distance yourself, you need to figure stuff out, I'll be here.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be easy should that happen. If it happens, it's not. Everyone here has been around long enough and experienced enough to know what happens in situations like this. It's not going to be easy. So
Mhm.
you got to figure out what you're going to do.
Okay. Um. So some things that I wanted to just get on, get out into the open. Um. I sort of this how I even came across these people was sort of just throughout my day to day stuff. Um. And having hung out with them for a little bit and just chatted with them, knowing them on a relatively casual level, uh, because it, because of just who I was as a cop. You pick up on little things. Also, and I don't know if I've really this is something that I don't really talk about, and I think that you guys probably have already heard this at some point. It was several years ago. So if you don't remember, that's totally okay. I had slash still have a real issue with an addiction. It was a coke addiction. I haven't touched the stuff in a very long time, but that being said, being around these people, you can kind of clock similar stuff, and it, after having become friendly with these people, uh, chats into those sort of things start to happen. But because of them being a group, uh, there's a certain level of trust that they want to have established for that, um, and that for them, I don't know how it works with other clubs or whatever. For them, is in the way of a chaplain. Now, normally, I looked up what the role is after hearing it, and that can be somebody who people go to for just their problems, not necessarily religious. Sometimes it is religious, um, and talk with them about them, whatever. Um, so, having heard that, um, and seeing the and hearing about vaguely some of the shit that they were struggling with, I wanted to help. I wanted to you know be a part of alleviating that in some way. So um, they asked me to do something, do something with them, and I think that Richard, because of um, your past with the loss that I'm privy to, I think you think that maybe I did something worse than I did. They asked me to kill a panther, which frankly was it's an invasive species. They they're not supposed to be here, and their population has gone wild. Whatever. That's I'm from. That's my mindset from being a ranger. Whatever. So I did it.
If I
I get
can, for a second, Jiggy,
sure.
I think you got the wrong idea of why I was worried about you being blooded in.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't worried about what you had to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that once you're blooded in, there's no way of getting out.
Mm.
It's a one-way ticket.
Okay. So I have known of uh, uh, clubs, groups, gangs, whatever that hold on to that sentiment. Um, from what I was told, that isn't necessarily the case with them. Can that happen? Potentially.